Hello everyone, welcome to the MudRoom, our weekly free Uncommon Sense parenting class. How is everyone doing? We have one more week of school to go, and I am both really looking forward to a break from the lunch packing in the early mornings, and also kind of dreading having the kids home 24/7 for the next 2 months. They are going to day camp for 1 week because their dad's going to be away, and I have just a few self-preservation instincts, but otherwise they're going to be home with me. So next week, we're going to sit down and we're going to map out their schedule because they may be home, but I still need to work and we need to make some memories. I'm so looking forward to working from the beach this summer. I need some vitamin D. This Canadian is ready. Okay, today I'd like to talk about why kids go through swings of preferring one parent over the other. This is another topic that comes up really frequently in the posse, generally because one parent is feeling really guilty or rejected and is desperately wondering what they did to make their child hate them and how to get back in their good books. This is a really emotionally charged topic. It doesn't feel good when your child screams "no" when you try to comfort them or help them, or when they scream for the other parent. But this happens to pretty much everyone at some point, and there are some really good reasons for it. Before we get into it though, allow me to introduce myself. If you're new around here, hi, my name is Alana Robinson and I'm a parenting coach for parents of toddlers, preschoolers, and kindergartners. I help you understand why your children are misbehaving and how to fix it without yelling, shaming, or timeouts. I'm your host here on the MudRoom. I'm also the host of the Parenting Posse Facebook group, and I'm the creator of the Parentability program where I help you raise well-behaved kids of your own. If you're watching, say hi and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss another class. So, there are 2 developmental periods where children generally start to exhibit parental preference. The first is when they're toddlers and they're starting to assert their independence and their sense of self, and the second is when they're preschoolers and they're starting to affirm their gender identity. For toddlers, in and around 2-ish, they go through a series of cognitive leaps that have them realizing that they are separate from mommy or daddy and they can have their own opinions and that they have the power through language, both body and verbal, that they can communicate and enforce those opinions. And that is a lot of power for a child that up until now has been a baby who has largely been at the whim of the adults. Saying, "No, daddy do," is a test and display of that newfound ability. They've got ideas, and you are going to listen to them whether you like it or not. A lot of parents conflate preference with love. So let's get something straight right out of the gate. Preference does not equal love. Your child loves you, I promise. They just, for whatever reason, want daddy to do it. Maybe daddy does it a certain way that they just like. Maybe mommy's voice is softer, so they want mama to comfort them. Preference is not love. It's not an expression of lack of love, and it's not an expression of more love. It's just a preference. And preference is a pendulum. It swings. So enjoy the break while you're the non-preferred parent because it's going to come back to you, and then you're not going to get 5 minutes peace. It's just a way that they're exerting their free will and their newfound ability to be understood and enforce their way of doing things. And that's okay. We want to encourage children to express their opinions and do it firmly. Now, at 2, it's usually rather maladaptive, but that's okay. They're 2, they're learning, and we'll help them express their preferences more adaptively as they get older. Remember, 2-year-olds are just developing their executive functioning skills. Their flexible thinking is usually pretty frickin' awful. That's a skill we need to support them in developing. And consistency makes kids feel safe. So often, 2-year-olds will display preferences that maintain predictability for them. So like, only mommy can feed me because mom's the one that usually feeds me. And that continuity reduces the amount of energy I have to use anticipating changes or adapting to the slightly different way that dad does things. Executive skills take a lot of energy to use, especially when they're brand spanking new. So naturally, they're going to try and reduce energy output in other ways. The more energy we have, the safer we feel. The other time children display preference is generally when they're in the preschool years and they're reinforcing their gender identity. Male-identifying children tend to go all in on daddy, and female-identifying children tend to go all in on mummy. I've also had same-sex couples worry about this because suddenly their son wants neither mom and is always screaming for whoever the strong male presence is in their life, like grandpa or uncle. Or they reject everything remotely female and go all in on like play fighting and bathroom talk and superheroes and trucks, all the boy stuff. Kids, generally around 4 or 5, tend to swing to the extremes of gender identity, and they tend to identify their gender as being not the other. So boys tend to identify being a boy as not being a girl, and girls tend to identify being a girl as not being a boy. There are obviously exceptions, and that's a gross generalization, but it's not uncommon, for instance, for little girls who have never been particularly girly to suddenly be all about the pink and the purple and the sparkles and the princesses and the fairies and the ponies and reject anything that might be construed as male. And that can sometimes even mean rejecting dad. And I'll throw my hand up here. My youngest just turned 6 last week, and he's been really interesting to watch because prior to turning 3, he had a very strong preference for pink and sparkles. And then suddenly he turned 4 and it was all green and orange and black and blue and wrestling and trucks and like very stereotypically boy. But he's gotten closer to 6 now, and that's been waning more and more. He's starting to play with dolls again. He's starting to expand his color preferences. He's back to watching My Little Pony, which was his favorite show before he turned 4. He's affirmed that he's a boy, and now he's chilling out a bit. But during that period, he was all daddy all the time, and it didn't help that typically my husband is away quite a bit with the military. But my son went through the thick of this stage during the height of the pandemic, when daddy was home all the time and he was constantly available. My name for the last 2 years has been Mud. He wanted nothing to do with me. The meltdown when I said I was taking him to get vaccinated was absolutely epic. He wanted daddy to take him. And he eventually only relented because I promised that his big brother would come, and that was good enough. Now, luckily, that's also chilling out. My older son is 8 now, and he also went through this stage, but he's about 2 years out of it now, and while they're both very firm that they are boys, he's now actually really secure in that. He's asked me to buy him pink and purple shirts, and when he wore a bright pink shirt to school recently, his friends were kind of like raising him and like, why are you wearing pink? And he very confidently said, because I like it, and all colors are for all people. Now, there are still times when he wants dad and only dad, but they're pretty few and far between, and they usually have to do with, like, body stuff. The way that I find is best to deal with this is a division of labor. My husband does baths and bedtime hygiene routine. That is his thing. If they're all about daddy, fantastic. If suddenly they're all about me, sorry, it's still daddy's job unless he's unavailable. On Sunday mornings, my husband always gets up with them and makes them breakfast while I sleep in. Always. And that will not change if they suddenly decide that I'm the bee's knees. He's not gonna let them wake me up and go back to bed while I make them eggs. Not happening. I am the one who sings them their bedtime songs and does their mindful routine at bed. It doesn't matter if my name is Mud, Daddy isn't going to Daddy's not gonna come and take it over, come hell or high water. If they don't want a bedtime song, that's cool, but Dad isn't going to do it. I read the after-school books with them. We sit down when my son gets home and we read a book. Now, if my husband is home, he'll usually sit in, but he's not going to read the book. I read the book. Of course, if I'm not home, he will do it. But if I'm home, it's my thing. Having those things where you've divided up tasks that, unless the other is absent, are their task, and that will not change, helps things keep consistent. And it means that whether your kids are all about you or not, you're getting quality time with them. And that is always your thing. And because of that, they're much less likely to freak out when the other parent isn't available because they know it's not their thing. And then the rest of the menial stuff, sure, if you want daddy to cut your meat up instead of me, here you go, honey, I'm gonna eat my dinner while it's hot. The other tip is not to alter plans based on parental preference demands. So yeah, sure, cut their meat, Dad. But if I was going to take my son to a doctor's appointment and my husband was going to stay home with the little one and work on his truck while he naps, and the older one goes, I want Daddy to take me to the doctor. Well, no, sorry, you're stuck with me, kiddo. Dad has shit to do. As I said, this happened with COVID vaccines. My youngest was just 5 when they became available, and he had this huge freak out about Daddy taking him for the jab. Well, Dad wasn't available, so sure, have your feelings about it, and I empathized out the wazoo. but it didn't change the plan. I was the one taking him. Or if I'm going grocery shopping and suddenly the little one becomes a clinger and this was my attempt to get some alone time, sorry buddy, I know you're upset, but you're staying home with daddy. It is okay to say to your child, I hear you, you want me, but I'm not available right now. So deal with the other parent. And I give this advice a lot to moms who feel like they can't leave their child with their dad because they're in that mom clinger phase. Leave the house. It's okay that they're crying for you. You're leaving them with their parent, not some random off the street. Generally, kids warm up a lot faster to the non-preferred parent if you get the fuck out and let them figure it out. Dad's not going to do things the exact same way you do, and that's okay. He doesn't have to. It's good for them to learn that other people are capable of caring for them, even if that care looks different than their normal. Experiencing others' care for them, even if they're scared and it's stressful in the moment, ultimately reduces their stress long term because they feel secure in more environments and with more people. The only way for them to feel secure in more environments and with a wider variety of people is to experience being safe in a variety of environments and with multiple caregivers. I know it's hard. I know it hurts and it sucks, but it isn't personal. It isn't a rejection. It's not an expression of a lack of love. It's just a preference born out of the developmental need to keep themselves safe and preserve energy. And that's okay. Sometimes we get what we prefer, sometimes we don't. I try and think of it like a breakfast sandwich. If I ask for a breakfast sandwich on a biscuit and they say, sorry, we're all out, you can have it on an English muffin, I'm still going to enjoy my breakfast sandwich. I still like English muffins. It's just not my preference. I'd prefer a biscuit. I don't wish English muffins would cease to exist. I don't resent English muffins for being available when the biscuits aren't. But given the option, I take the biscuit every time. This is a developmental stage, and that's important to remember. If you establish firm and clear boundaries, establish a routine where both mom and dad are involved and will not be swayed from their roles, and allow them to choose their preference outside of those times and affirm their gender identity, it's going to pass. This is not forever. If you're unsure of how to apply some of these concepts to your family, come and let's talk it out in the Parenting Posse. It's a great place to bounce ideas off of other parents who have gone through it, and we have some amazing mods available to talk you through it as well. The link for that's in the description. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next week for another Uncommon Sense parenting class. Bye!